Greetings, Commanders. Today we're going to be going over the Type 11 buff that we tested out last night on stream. So I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on the ship, and I do think it's actually in a pretty good place. I know some people were saying or possibly think it's a little bit overpowered. Considering the fact that this is a dedicated mining ship and it has restricted hardpoints, I think it's fitting exactly perfectly where it should be inside the game. So I'm curious what your thoughts and opinions are on it. But for anyone curious on what's actually changed, I'm going to show you all the different stats for each of the different things, and then we'll move on to some examples from the stream and also some live examples inside this video. Alright, so to start off, this is going to be mostly the default build setup. The Mining Volley Repeater has a 500 meter range. Now what's changed inside the Gatling gun, mostly it's the damage per second, and it's also going to give more chunks. The good news is though that this gun's actually good enough now on its own without needing additional lasers, so if you're wanting an all-around mining ship, the Type 11 is now going to fill that spot. You're going to be able to do the subsurface displacement and the core mining inside this one ship without having to have any compromises. I personally took off some of the normal defense weapons because I didn't think they were necessary, just to save on some mass, and I also removed the shield booster as long with the shield. For the core internals, we tried it with the engineered power plant and the engineered distributor. However, just going back to the stock form, so that's just going to come with a 7A and a 6A as long as you're on the Stellar. If you're buying the standard version, then you are going to need to buy better components for it, but as long as you have A class for the power plant and the distributor, you're never going to overheat and your weapon's going to be able to work the entire time. For optional internals, this is where we're going to keep everything stocked. Once again, if you're not in the Stellar or Galactic Edition, you're going to have to outfit a lot of the cargo racks yourself. However, most of this is all going to be standard. The main thing that's changed though is this mining multi-limpet controller. This is moved from 8 to 14, and they also increase the maximum speed. So they're going to be able to run around and grab everything for you. Now, why is this change good for the Type 11 specifically? Well, the Gatling gun's kind of random when it comes to getting your chunks, so it's not going to be like a guaranteed spot. They're all going to be spread around everywhere. So I think that's why the increased speed and the limpet count actually does matter quite a bit. Where like a typical mining laser, you can sort of coax the game into dropping in a certain spot. That way it gives the limpets a much shorter distance to travel. So I think that's a nice balance change for it. Now, if you're curious about the hangar compartment, currently this is sitting where you're going to have a fighter bay. You can take it off, that way it saves on some ton for your ship, that way you have a little bit better jump range. I did give us suggestions where maybe we can eventually get like a fighter that's able to place like seismic charges or something. No guarantee if that'll ever happen, but hopefully we'll be able to get that eventually, then the hangar bay makes a little bit more sense. Currently though, the ship's fast enough that I don't think you necessarily need a defense drone flying around to keep you alive. And then I would fill in just another cargo rack. The 3A refinery and fuel scoop, everything else is literally going to be the stock build with basically no engineering. The only thing on this current setup that we have engineered is our thrusters for dirty drive tuning. If you wanted to do a bigger power plant with a shield, I would actually do a little bit different compared to most mining ships. So the low emissions power plant, you're going to have a little bit less actual overall power, so it's a little bit better if you went with monstered, mainly due to the fact that this guy is not really having any issues with heat, and you don't need to have a huge amount of lasers, so it's not going to be like a huge crazy power draw. If you have the stock shield booster in the shield, it's basically going to be maxed out at like 0.2 megawatts left over, which is why I took them off, that we have a little bit extra room to play around with. Now for people who are wondering what the max storage is, currently it's 272. We should be able to add an additional 64 roughly with the pre-engineered cargo racks. So we should be able to get it up to about 336 roughly. So since we have such a simple build with this ship without having to have so many lasers, basically for firing Group A, we have our Prospector on Group 2, we have our Collectors and our Mining Volley on Group 1. Basically, while you're shooting the Mining Volley, it's going to automatically replenish your Collectors in case any of them die, and then your Prospector will be able to do everything by itself. For Group B, we have it set for the Seismic Charge, the Pulse Wave Analyzer, and the Displacement Missiles. One cool thing about the Gatling gun itself, if you have any service deposits, you're able to shoot them, and it's going to be able to chunk them off for you. You're not going to be able to use it as a subsurface displacement missile though, so that's why it does come with one.
Alright, so that took about 22 seconds, and I'll give it like 2 seconds of like change in between, so. With it being restricted to like 0.5% compared to what the normal is, what, like typically what would be a good amount for one asteroid, do you know? So it looks like that one gave us 14 low temp and 8 inside the hopper. 5 to 7 ton per big round? Oh, so this is a good amount. About double what you normally get.
And it does seem to be pretty consistent too. Before we were getting like 2 to 6, but after this current buff, we're getting 25 large chunks. They do fill up your hopper much quicker than normal. As you guys can see, you get a decent amount, and you can also target them and see the amount per chunk as well. We did notice that the bigger chunks seem to be a little bit more consistent when it comes to low temp diamonds versus the platinum. Platinum, it's a little all over the place with the amount that's actually inside of the small one, so some of the fragments are a little bit more, even though the chunks still fill up your hopper, where the low temp diamonds actually display the proper value. So I'm not sure if that's just like a bug currently. But like, for example, that one's 27, and then like this large chunk is 46. But occasionally you'll have like the smaller fragments being a decent value. Yeah, roughly you get about 25 of the large chunks, and it is going to fill up your cargo bay very quickly, especially if you're in a higher tier node. So we're going to make some room. And then drop our scoop. And this is exactly what I was saying. Having the limpets be increased to 14 and having them increased in speed, it does make sense since this one's going to be a lot less consistent when it comes to like where the pieces are going. Usually when you're laser mining, you're able to have a bottom laser shoot second and have all the fragments be on the bottom. This gun has the fragments going all over the place. You might be able to like find like the perfect angle to try to like coax it to go into a certain spot. But since the gun's shooting in random areas, I don't think it's going to be as consistent to be able to control as a normal mining laser ship. With that said though, it took us roughly about 24 minutes to get 272 platinum last night. So it does fill up relatively quickly. I think that's going to put it on par with a large ship. I personally don't think it's overpowered, especially since it's designed to be a mining vessel. So I'll do a couple clips of like the low temp diamonds for the people who are interested in that. And generally, my opinion is I think it's going to be worth it. I know a lot of people said on stream last night that they were planning on having one person be like the dedicated Type 11 user and another person being the dedicated cargo hauler. So they'd be like running behind, grabbing all the extra chunks. So that's another method that you could do to get around the whole fact that it's a medium ship. So it's not going to have a huge amount of storage, but with about 330 with the increased pre-engineered racks, I think it'll actually be pretty good. Let me know what your opinions are on the Type 11. Is it too overpowered? Are you satisfied with the change? I think they did a good job in making it balanced, especially since it's so restricted, because some parts are going to be limited only to mining, so it sort of needed to have that buff in order to make sense to be a mining vessel dedicated. See you guys in the next one, Commanders. Hopefully this helped you decide if you want to purchase the Type 11 or not.